Let's see what we got going here. Hey, everybody. I'm going to try and put my phone around so we can see Marky. Let's see if we can make sure we can see Marky properly here, and me. You know, this is the top scientific setup here. We've got the most technical setup in America here for our live streams. And it's a pleasure to welcome Mark Spybey live from Northern England. You're in Newcastle, right?
No, I'm south of Newcastle. I'm in a place called Redcar. It's my hometown.
Redcar, but what a cool name that is.
Yeah, I know.
So is that on this side of the river or that side of the river if you're in London?
North of London.
North, yeah.
about 250 miles north.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, you hear my cat meowing?
Yeah.
It's
probably my son as well.
It's a sign of the times. Welcome everybody out there in Patreon land. If you have any questions, make sure to forward them through. Strangely, when I look at my app now,
It's straight. It doesn't even go to a link to YouTube.
no, it's got to go up.
What?
Let's make sure we're on here. Wow, that's yours?
That's just mine.
Will you check on yours?
Yeah,
What does it do?
it's live, but it doesn't go straight to YouTube. It just goes onto your Patreon app. It just opens on like.
Oh, cool. So we're on here anyways. Can you go? I'll show you how to go straight to YouTube. Forgive us while we set up these details here, folks. In order for us to see what's going on, how can we see the questions if we can't go through to YouTube?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, this is weird.
That's the first time that's ever done that.
That's the first time it's ever operated this way. Well, I guess we're just going to have our chat. You could go onto your...
I'm on my Patreon, so maybe just to have the people put the questions in the...
Yeah, so apparently, please pose the questions on the Patreon page. For some reason, the YouTube direct through link is not providing us with a link to go through to ask questions.
I'll stay tuned. I'll keep watching.
Yeah. So I'm here in Los Angeles, and Mark is there in the UK. Mark, how are you coping over there with everything?
I'm okay. I'm all right.
Really?
Yeah. In the house, keeping my distance away from people, doing what we're told to do, which is not what everyone is doing. These are difficult times, aren't they? Strange times.
So are a lot of people self-isolating there, as they are here in LA?
Yeah. I mean, it was neat. We went out for a walk the other day, and we're in the middle of the woods, and it was hardly anybody around. This guy came riding by on his bike. He said, "Don't worry, I'll stay 2 meters away from you." And that's the responsible thing to do, isn't it? When people say, "Stay away," they're telling you to stay away for a reason. It's not because they don't want you to have contact with people. It's because you don't know, I don't know if I'm carrying a virus, and I don't know if they're carrying a virus. And the only way of stopping this is staying away from people. So it's, I'm staying away from people as much as I possibly can.
It's really
Clean
strange.
hands all the time as well.
It's really strange around here because, you know, LA is notorious for our traffic, but lately it's like the 70s or something. It's how I imagine the 70s anyways, where the roads are just empty, completely wide open. I bombed down to the store the other day on my scooter, and it just felt like the Omega Man.
I'm getting images now of folks asking what cars around and, probably bear and things.
Yeah, I know.
It's weird. It's weird.
So Rihanna's manning the questions on the Patreon page. Thank you, Rihanna. You can forward.
Hey, Rihanna.
Hi, Mark.
Rihanna's here.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm okay.
She's tucked out of screen currently.
Awesome.
All right. So from Stephen Clifton. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Mark. I love your work, especially Piss Frond. I'd like to know what the lyrics in Seven Plagues, especially around the 3-minute mark. I'd also like to know the origins of B Hatch titles bearing your name, and if you both could talk about the glass blower video.
Should we talk about the glass blower video?
Yeah, we can
That was interesting.
talk
I'll
about
tell you
that
what-
first.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's interesting. Do you recognise these, Kevin?
Oh, that's from the glassblower video.
Yeah.
Speak of the devil.
So actually, isn't it on its sleeve as well?
Aren't
Anyway,
they?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen these little glasses was supplied by Bill Morrison for Kevin, Phil, and I when we did the glassblower video. And
Oh, there I can see.
and I thought earlier on I'll bring a few things, and I didn't really know where they were, and I just saw them. And I started the glassblower video. So was there some question about glassblower itself?
What do you remember about the glassblower video? What I remember about that was Vancouver used to be a city where it was pretty cheap, and there was still like a lot of vacant lots, even a lot of like even
Yeah.
right in the downtown center core. So that spaceship that Bill and those guys built for the video was set up right on Granville Street. Do you remember that?
That's right.
It was literally at Robson and Granville on like just a vacant lot there, and we were enacting this.
Yeah.
We were enacting this thing where we actually had to go inside that capsule. It was quite tight in there, and as you say, I remember it was quite warm that day for Vancouver. But everyone was looking at us, and we had all these freaks around saying it was the end of the world and everything like that. It's just such a weird thing to think how different Vancouver is now. On one
And we
hand,
had these like trench coats on that were really, really heavy.
yeah,
And, it was great being on it. It was great doing a video. I mean, it's. I remember there's a funny thing about it, which is that Bill Morrison said, "Don't smile," because he says when you're in the spaceship looking out, you're supposed to be looking out at the end of the world, so you're always smiling. Stop smiling. I'm like going, okay, yeah, I'm going to stop smiling because this is ridiculous, you know. So anyway, we get in the spaceship, and if you look at that video now, one of the last shots is me, you, and Phil, all looking out of the hatch. You and Phil looking really dramatic, and oh my God, this is the end of the world, and I'm there going like a bit. Because I just couldn't stop it, you know. It was just, it was a lot of fun. I can also remember, didn't we haul it down the back alley in East Hastings or something?
Oh my God, yeah, I just remember that now. You just reminded me. We had to take it somewhere, the capsule. And so the only people that were around to do it was us. And so we had to drag it. And it was like we were dragging a space capsule right through the most like vibrant, hardcore drug shoot up area of Vancouver. Remember? We were dragging up the alley. And there was all these guys that were like lying on the side of the street. They were looking up going, oh, well, what the hell is that? And it was, wow, what a brilliant memory.
Yeah, well, East Hastings, because it was right behind where Darryl had his studio.
Yeah.
That was great. So I was, it's nice that video is still around. You can easily find it still.
So there was a question about the lyrics on Seven Plagues.
I haven't got a bloody clue. I mean, I haven't got a clue what the lyrics are.
There's no deep meaning on that one? No deep meaning on that lyric? From that one? I love that song. That's one of my favorites. Hold on, he's got to look it up.
I'm going to look it up.
Look at that CD collection back there, everybody. Thanks for posing the questions on the Patreon page, people, because for some reason on the live chat on YouTube, it is not linking through for us. So Rihanna, the lovely Rihanna, is here relaying the questions, which we will get
Track
to.
number 12. I can put it on for a second and I'll tell you.
He's got to remember which song it is.
I think this might be Genesis.
No, it's you.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's not the oh no, it's a kill part.
Well, hold on. As soon as you hear the song, you'll get your memory will probably get tweaked.
Track 12.
Technology. Seven Plagues, I might say, is another song that was written actually originally for The Process, and just kind of like went completely above everybody's heads, and so it wound up in our pile, which I always liked.
Wait, there's no lyrics on Seven Plagues.
Yeah, there is. Well, the question came from Steven. I said, it's what, 3 minutes in or something?
Yeah.
Oh, 3 minutes in.
Yeah. Let's go 3 minutes in. Let's review.
Right.
Have you ever had a more explicit response to your question asking Steven?
Oh, shit. No.
Did you hear my cat Tiger tried to respond to your question? Tiger?
Hi.
Now, Tiger lately has become very vocal, so I would not be surprised if you do not see and or hear her during this interview.
Go get your daddy.
Mark is currently...
I've currently got a really shit CD player.
But look at all those CDs. It would be wise to get a new one, maybe.
I know, I should, yeah.
Well, while you're looking and listening, I'm just going to say that LA, for those who are curious, is literally in a complete shutdown. And I've never seen it like this. And it's, in some ways, it's very interesting.
It's supposed to start raining in an hour.
And they say it's going to rain here again, but it's been very weird in LA. It's kind of like what you would expect for this type of situation, that of course it would be torrentially downpouring.
Look at that.
Oddly for
Scroll.
Oh, now it looks like it's going to be a few days.
Yeah.
Mark,
No, I can't get the CD to work. It's obviously
I think Mark, it was a pitched vocal. It was like a harmonized. We pitched your vocal down, so it was like speaking, but like God was speaking.
Oh, all right. Well, if it's probably nothing then, to be honest. The only one that I remember really off the Eyes of Stanley Pen that's like that is, I think it's Collision.
That's correct. That's another one with the same voice from God.
Wait. You've only yourself to blame.
That's it.
That one. Your imagination has been given the freedom to do whatever you want to do. Nobody will tell you to stop, to cease, or to go away. That one, yeah. That's the one that I remember.
That sounds very familiar. So, recently Genesis passed away. That's super sad. What were your thoughts on that? Did you
Yeah,
have any feelings?
It's obviously been quite unwell for some time. I saw him about 3 years ago in Poland, very briefly. I mean, he was at the same festival that I was playing at, and he didn't look well, and was walking with a cane and things. But I mean, you knew him a lot better than me, to be honest, because you hung out in California, didn't you, with the Process sessions?
Yeah. And then he also came by the house here, hung at the house, and then most of my relationship with him was via the phone, though, surprisingly.
I know.
Yeah.
That was in download days, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then we met up with him in New York in 2001 when we did the Ogre tour. And then, well, of course, when he would come to town, we'd see him just very briefly, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as I said, my relationship with Jen was always usually through phone or text now for at least the last 5 years or more.
But if you look back at the volume of the work that he did, some of that early stuff was just incredible, wasn't it? So it's a loss.
It is. Let's take another question.
Question from Stubborn Puppet.
Stubborn Puppet.
I know him very well.
I'd like to hear all about when the two of you met and about the formation of Download. Thanks for doing this, you guys.
Good question.
Here's hoping you create together.
Can I go
again.
first?
Yeah.
So, as you well all know, or maybe don't know out there, Mark was part of the legendary band's Soviet France. And Soviet France did a tour of America. What year was that? Well, it was odd because
91.
Mark had been partaking in the band, and then they came to do a tour, and I guess Mark didn't partake in the tour. But oddly, when the band came to do a show in Canada, in Vancouver, the agent called me up and said, "Okay, well, I'm sorry, we have to cancel the show." And so I said, "Oh no, I can't let that happen." And so I actually organized the venue and where we could do the show in replacement for the cancellation, and ended up putting on a very quick and impromptu reset-up of the event. I can't even remember the name of the club where it did happen at, but the event was unbelievable. I think it was one of the first events ever where there was 3 guys sort of all gathered on the floor with a sound system around them, and people gathered around in a circle. That was the first time I'd ever really seen a show like that. So I think it was about a year later, somebody from Network called me up and said, "Hey, Kevin, there's a guy from Soviet France that's living here in town now." And I said, "Oh, really? Oh, shit. Tell him to give me a call." So Mark gives me a call, and we meet via the phone. And the first thing he tells me is, "Oh, I didn't meet you on that show. I was, you had already left but the band at that point?"
Yeah, I left them.
Yeah, he had left them. And then so it was great, though, because it still led to us meeting. And then one of the greatest things ever is I think Mark said, "Why don't you come on by?" And then the first thing you did is you had me do almost like meditation with music and sound, where it was like, let's create the most minimalist type thing that you can imagine and see how well that works for us. And it was stunning. I think maybe you even recorded it, but there was a few sessions where at that time in my life especially, it was I think we had just made Last Rites. And so it's going through intense personal stuff with everybody. And so Mark was this guy that came along, was this a mentor of how to become more within yourself, and basically control your mind. Instead of having a million things going on, we were bringing it down to the base level. And I think that's partially because Mark, you have always been working with people as an occupational therapist. So I think you basically have a natural method with whether it's music or art or even food, of when you're with you have a natural way of making people feel all of a sudden comfortable. And then all of a sudden you're actually maybe even doing something that you never even did. So the creation of what Mark and I started doing was super healing for me. It was blissful. And I remember telling Dwayne, "Oh my God, I've met this guy that I'm doing these jams with, and it's so spiritual and wonderful." And he said, "Oh, bring him by the studio." And he had also met Phil Western. And so he had this same bond with Phil that I was sort of explaining that I had with you. And so we kind of thought well, let's bring these friends together into an environment where we all met. And then I swear, it wasn't the same day we probably started our 4-guy jams, right?
Yeah. The other, that's a really nice story. Thanks, really nice words. There's a couple of little bits of connections there. One is when I moved to Vancouver, I started to make music. And I sent a tape of this to the UBC radio.
CITR. Yeah.
CITR, yeah. And because I heard a show on there called Mechanical Industrial Noise, or something like that. Anyway, the show was hosted by this lady called June Scudler. And I sent her a recording that I'd done. And she played it, and then she passed on my details to you. And I think that it might have been via network, but
came through network. Yeah.
So I've got June to thank, but I also came to see you in your apartment on Watson Street, and I brought you a tape.
I still have it.
I don't have the tape because you've got the tape. I don't know if you still got it, but I do have this.
Oh, what's this?
This is just a copy. It's the copper that I put in the tapes.
Right.
So your tape in copper. I think yours might have been in a box, and I think you might have had one of those in it as well.
Oh yeah. That's right. It was in a box inside a box.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I have it still.
Going back, Virgin Mary. And I mean, that first recording I put on tape. In fact, I've released it. I think it's on a record called New Words Machine, and it's you playing a copper log bin. So there's no logs in it, thankfully. You turn it upside down, and it has a fantastic sound. It's still got the bin that's downstairs right now. And you were playing it with sort of like beaters. It just had contact mics and everything. I had one effect unit. I'd rented a Boss SE50 from Long and McQuaid. And I had one effects unit, a fork track, and a contact mic. And that was about it.
It was perfect though, man. The sounds that came out of that thing were pretty unbelievable. When I think back on it, like I think of being, it's funny because lately in life I've been becoming more in tune with being mindful. And I thought that was mindfulness in music, really, because it's like sort of like stating, well, we're making a sound, but it didn't really matter how it was created. I could have been whistling or something.
I think in part we've got Phil to thank for that as well, haven't we? Because he was very much like that. He was really into kind of the reflecting on music and thinking about it. And yeah.
Well, when speaking about Phil, I mean, what blows me away is that when he came into the jams right at that point, which is, I believe that was like right at the beginning of 1994, after we returned home from Malibu, after the Process recordings, I was shocked at how advanced Phil was for a 23-year-old. I thought, like, how, like, even Dwayne and I were both shaking our head, going like, how is this kid so smart? Or how is he so advanced on things? And I see that as a gift. I don't know how he got there, but like, so he brought this thing in where you were making sounds, Mark, that was like, everyone was like, oh my God, this is like a new world. And then Phil was also doing things that Dwayne and I were looking at and going, this is a new world. And so it was the best of all world situations for that time for me. I've never been more inspired, I don't think, in my life.
I think it was the mixture, the collision, if you like, of three different kinds of sounds.
I think so.
So there was stuff that you and Dwayne brought, and it wasn't just you and Dwayne, it was you and Dwayne, you know what I mean? It was
everybody. It was like everybody put something into it that made it go, steps beyond what we could even imagine.
And then you had the Phil factor that was all about that kind of, he was totally on the ball with what was going on at the time. I know Dwayne was too, but I mean, I think, I think Phil was as good as anybody around that time in doing what he did. Then was my thing that was kind of the old school, make instrument with children's toys, kind of anything goes kind of school. And it was just that it came to pass in Furnace, didn't it, really? Because Furnace was the kind of melting pot where all these different sounds came together and sort of collided, really. So it was, I mean, I do remember those times down at the studio. Was it on Seymour Street?
Yes, 800 Seymour.
Yeah, Seymour. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 525 Seymour, Suite 800.
I do remember those times with such fondness. I mean, I think the thing I remember about the Furnace sessions was that it was long nights of getting together and then just recording everything that we did. I mean, it might be 5, 6, 7 hours, but it was all recorded. And then obviously what we did next with the Stanley Plane was different because that was days and nights.
Yes,
Literally 6-day-a-week operation, day and night. Because
yeah,
you'd be there, I don't know, around lunchtime, and then you'd leave at like midnight or something.
yeah.
And then
Every
I'd
day.
work, and then I'd come to work with you at 5 o'clock. We'd have some food, and then I'd work until 11 at night, and then you'd have Ken going in or somebody, or early in the morning. It was literally a sort of like round the clock operation. It's very, very, very neat.
Furnace, the thing I think about is that initially when we made the songs on the album, we would do like about a 20-minute jam of each of those ideas was based from an original jam where, as I was saying earlier, we first got together and we met. And then the first thing we did is we exchanged a MIDI sync cable. It was like everybody that had MIDI got a sync. Mark didn't need sync though. It was kind of cool. He's like completely analog. So the jams would actually go down as improvisations. And then much time later went by, and then it was time to sort. And that was like the hard part. I remember spending about a month and a half in the studio, basically, yeah, as you say, like noon till midnight every day, just editing the songs down from 20 minutes down to 6 minutes or whatever they were, and then trying to frame something up with the idea that, like, say, adding vocals or the strum stick or Genesis or whatever it might be. Yeah, look at, there it is, the original thing. Oh my God, looks like it's in good shape still.
It's got a couple of cracks, and I've always thought I'm going to fix it. Well, I probably will. But yeah, it's even got the original strings on it.
Wow. I bought that in like Louisiana in like the mid 80s on Skinny Puppy Tour. But I gave it to Mark because it was his perfect lead guitar instrument. But
it's never sounded better though when it's been through your Eventide.
Oh, I know, God. Let's see another question here. Rihanna's going to pose another lovely question.
Says, how can fans help musicians like you guys at this time?
Who's the question from?
Alex.
Alex Graham?
Yep.
Hi, Alex.
How can fans help musicians like you guys at this time in the unforeseeable future?
How can fans help us? Obviously, all I have to just, as I said earlier on my page here for Patreon, has been absolutely, I am so very thankful for each and every one of you guys. You don't even understand how much it means to be able to be supported in today's world with the art that we do. We would not be able to continue doing this if it wasn't for you. So I got to give big thumbs up to this platform here on Patreon and the support that is given to Subcon, and then also the creation of the album that I just finished making. Mark, I mean, I think that you would be the first guy to probably think about making a Patreon for yourself, as you have so many goodies to probably still offer from behind the scenes and stuff.
Yeah, I just never gotten around to it. I mean, I'm just finishing my job. I retired a year ago, but I went back to work for a year. So as of now, I'm pretty much retired because I've got one more week left, but I'm working from home. So I shall then be, and you know what, I picked the worst time in the world to announce some shows in the US, which was last week, I think, or the week before that. For the middle of May. So
what do you guys?
I've got a camp page.
What do you guys think, though? What do you think about that? I honestly think that, you know, even shows that are probably booked June, July are probably going to be fractured as well. I just can't see. I can't see this happening soon. That we'll be able to be back all partying in public. I pray. You know what I pray? Yeah. What I really can't stand to hear is this, like, 55% of California is going to be infected. It's going to be an 18-month pandemic. There's going to be nothing until we can get a vaccine. I realize that's probably the reality, the grim reality. But when the world is like boiling in this stress of where we're at, you just got to hope that there's that superhero brain out there, the 1 in a trillion person that's going to come up with a solution that will hopefully end this pandemic in a way that we'll all feel safe. So that, I mean, that's my hope and my wish. But in the meantime, Mark, how can people support you? Well. I mean, by the way,
I'm camping. And
congrats on your retirement. And but what you're on Bandcamp, right?
yeah. So people can buy stuff there. I mean, I'm lucky because I've got a work pension. So I mean, I sound like I'm an old fart really, but I have retired early, I should say. But so I'm fine. I mean, I've always had a job, so I've never given up that job. So music for me has always been a hobby. So I'm fine. You don't need to worry about me. I mean, I heard something today that's worrying. I'm not wearing this for any reason other than I put it on this morning. But this is my friend Randall. He's a friend of yours.
Love Randall, yeah.
Yeah, and Randall's in a band called Orbit Service, and I just heard today that he's out of work at the moment, and that's very worrying, because
That is worrying.
He's employed by the music business, and
Absolutely.
all the venues are not working.
He's been running Ophelia's there out in Denver.
Yeah, so there are people in a lot worse position than me. I think there is a hope. I think the hope is don't get too caught up in the worst case scenario, because somebody who's always going to give you the worst case scenario, and stick together, folks, because that's the thing that's going to get us through this. Being there for each other, supporting each other.
Totally agree.
And keeping busy as well. Doing things like this, keeping busy.
Yeah, and then also I'm going to try and keep regular on here and try and give regular updates as to how it's, obviously do the report from LA. But Mark, now today you're doing the report from the UK.
Yeah.
So it's like we'll try and keep the world informed from our knowledge here. But Zach Nevland. Hi, Zach. I was wondering how you guys achieved that very squelchy synth bass sound that shows up. Oh no, I gotta go get the CD. In Turing Cloud. Oh man, I wish I could remember some of those details. Squelchy synth bass sound. I'm gonna say that is probably the Yamaha SY22. The only thing that I can remember about that particular song, actually, I remember that it had a killer kick drum in that song.
I can remember that. I can remember the lyrics, if that helps. I think I can.
Let's hear some lyric.
I love it. I remember that. There's a section that I really, really like when we've done it live. And
yeah, it used to be killer live.
It's Broken Head.
Oh, right.
You believe in you. That one, yeah.
Mark's so animated, man. We got to get you back on stage. Maybe we should do an Isa Stanley Payne tour or something like that, and just like have fun. Get Ryan Moore back on the double drum kit, and God, who could you get to fill in for Phil or Dwayne? No, I mean that would be impossible. But we just could have maybe some, I don't know, some beautiful lights where they'd be, and then like something like listen by Kat in the background. She is just so vocal today. Alexander Atmox. Alexander, are you doing good over there? I think you're over in Russia. I hope everything is okay. Hey guys, just wanted to say hi and send my respect from St. Petersburg. Thank you for the music. I wish Download will have another cycle of life. Well, you're seeing it right here. Mark and I we could theoretically start tapping and he could sing right now if you like. Bird Spanker. Hey, buddy. Chat on YouTube is working, but I'll post my question here as well. I'd like to know what's happening with Mark's series of 7 inches on the Tourette's records. Will the rest of the records ever come out?
No, sorry, there won't. Unfortunately, what happened is that Tourette's records is no longer. No, it's not in existence anymore, unfortunately. I mean, the sad fact about most of a lot of record companies that I've worked with is that it's usually one man, it's one guy.
For sure.
It's a labour of love. and if personal circumstances change, then things change. But I mean, I think we got 3 of them out. But I mean, I've still been doing lots of collaborations with people, so tons of them. It's like so. Bert Spanker, is it? Oh, this is it not Alex? Whoever's asked the question.
No, this is Bert Spanker.
Bert Spanker, yeah. So there's lots of stuff out there. If you check out, I don't know if you. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of. I've been involved in lots of collaborations. I've been working with this. I think about the guy from St. Petersburg. We've been working with the Russian guy called Anatoly Grimberg, and really, really happy with the stuff that we've been doing. So there's lots of stuff out there. But I'm sorry, yeah, that series just went with the it just wasn't going to happen after the first few. We managed to get one more record out on that label, which was the last B Hatch record with Phil. And Joseph, who ran it, did a fantastic job for many, many years. But it's like I said, these labours of love are very difficult for people to sustain. You know,
that's another thing.
That's for sure.
You know, like even labels like Artifact and labels that I'm working with here have even said to me how, even just by the shutting down of South by Southwest, some of these labels lost a lot of money because they promote their artists to take part in these things, and
yes.
So you know, the best way to support these things during this time is to go and actually, even through Bandcamp, go and support the labels that are doing the groundwork to lay out the space for Mark or I or any of these other artists to actually release an actual CD or vinyl. I always thought it was quite amazing that we are going back to a vinyl age again, you know, a beautiful physical product. And it requires so much more work to get something like that completed than it does to make a digital release.
Yeah.
A lot of coordination, a lot of expense. And without these people that are willing to say for instance, for me, it's Artifact, without their support, like going in and doing all this, that it just wouldn't happen. Artifact are totally behind, you know, if they want to release an album, the first priority is vinyl. Like, oh, this is beautiful. So I'm worried about what will happen in these times, but you know, because we're all at home and because we're all digesting probably more now than we ever will, continue to support the arts, and I think that afterwards the arts will heavily pay you all back. I know I intend to.
Yeah, I think, so yes, support the label, right, stuff from them. I think that's really important. Keep, you know, because they're still doing the work. I mean, I've got several releases in the pipeline at the moment, and they're all still going ahead. I'm sure there'll be problems shipping them around, and you know, they're still doing the work. And so, yeah, keep buying, folks.
Sorry for laughing, but my cat is just howling in the background. She's a talker.
Oh, yeah.
She's only 1 year old, so she's just like, hey. But, Alex Graham asks, if I was to time travel back to the 80s, 90s when SP lived in Vancouver, and I take it you mean Download too, would I ever have seen you guys at the farmer's market on Granville Island? And the answer is yes, you would.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
Mark, didn't we go for fish and chips quite often down there?
I don't know about that. Granville Island. Oh. I don't think you and I can't remember going there with you. I used to go shopping there. I mean, I think, you know, the thing about living in Vancouver and doing what you did is that you were always bumping into somebody, weren't you? You know, yeah. You cross the street and there's Bill Lee. All right, Bill, you know. You know, the funniest encounter I ever had, you remember this, Kevin, is that I'm fond of this this obscure British band called AMM, who started in the 60s. And
right.
And I was walking down Robson Street, because I worked on Robson Street, just opposite where you lived. I'm seeing this guy and I'm thinking, that's the drummer from AMM, a guy called Eddie Prevost. And I'm like, so I go over to him and say, "You're Eddie Prevost?" He says, "Yeah, yeah." I says, "Yeah." So I think I ended up going for a meal with him, and then I brought him down to the studio. And you remember, this was the guy who was very, very famous.
Right, I remember that now.
With all sorts of people. I mean, around that time he was playing in a band called God. Justin Broderick,
Right.
Evan Parker. God knows. I mean, there's like 12 of them in this band. Like free jazz kind of grindcore. It was incredible. And we brought to the studio thinking Eddie Creevy was going to play your drums. He was going to appear on our record.
I remember you were ecstatic about it.
Yeah, he says, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I can't play these drums."
I remember there was.
He's a really nice guy, though. That kind of city just bumped into people all the time.
I think he was slightly intimidated by our techno sound too.
He probably was.
It was a little bit too dancey for him, I thought.
Well.
Yeah.
He was a dance drummer, so he's used to working with a bass drum that's like that.
Yeah.
Like that. And your bass drum was like this.
Yeah, like huge. Yeah.
And purple, if I remember.
Huge and purple.
Still huge and purple.
It's still got it downstairs.
Yeah. Jason
Belanger. Hello, Jason. I may have missed it, but are you two planning on some collabs? I know Mark just put out a new DVOA, Dead Voices on Air. Maybe your solo album. Mark and I have actually, we're overdue for a new collaborative. The thing is that, because we live so far apart, that's the main thing. As in the past, of course, he used to be like just down the street. So I could drive over to his place or we could meet up. And so that's how we actually got to, make the music, is that we actually lived in the same city. But since Mark's back in the UK now, it's a lot harder. But I really love working with Mark. As I've said before, it is literally spiritual, and the basis of which Mark and I actually did a tour right after Dwayne passed away that was super, super magical for the soul as well. Do you remember that, Mark?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. We played about 5 shows in Eastern Canada.
All super organic.
Toronto,
Yeah.
Hamilton, Toronto, London, Ottawa, and Montreal.
Yeah.
It was great.
I'll tell you what. I promise that I'd like to do a show with you where we revisit Download and Dead Voices on Air, and we coordinate that in the future. So I'll toss it up right here, right now.
I'll do it.
Okay, I'll do it.
I'll do it too.
So tell your local promoters out there, Patreon people, that you want to bring Kevin Key and Mark Spybey to your town to do some reminiscing on good old Download.
Definitely do it.
Rihanna's doing a wonderful job of posing the questions here. Thank you. Jeremy Dickens. Hello, Jeremy.
Hey, Jeremy.
Given all the comments related to the shelves of CDs, what music you guys listening to at the moment to get through these strange days? Anything new and interesting?
Anything new? I don't know. For me, I don't know how I'm really listening to a lot of new music. Miles Davis, Pharoah Sanders.
That's exactly what I would imagine, is that, we've all got these shelves of CDs like Mark has up here, and it's time to maybe go and explore what we actually own.
No, that's what I've been doing. Doing.
So
some of the stuff that I bought that I've never really listened to. And one of the things I really enjoyed over the last few months is, I don't know if you've seen it, but Tangerine Dream put a sort of box set together of all of the early stuff.
Amazing, yeah. I have that. Yeah, it's the best thing they released, that box set.
Yeah, I know, it's brilliant.
It's like all the real. I mean, almost you might want to say experimental Tangerine Dream.
Yeah,
much more palatable for us in industrial people.
But I'm listening to all sorts of stuff. It's always the hardest question for me to answer that, because I always forget. As soon as somebody says, "Oh, what music are you listening to?" I'm like, I can't remember. I bought some new stuff recently. But I bought "Wish You Were Here" on vinyl again.
There you go.
Because I didn't have it on vinyl, because I'd sold the vinyl years ago. But I just wanted to hear Wish You Were Here on vinyl, like 180, I think it's a 200 gram vinyl. And it just sounds beautiful, you know. So, um, a lot of the stuff that they're re-releasing now is just incredible. It's just the quality is brilliant.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, I always find that dub, especially like Scientist or something to that effect, always like I return back to that when if I'm ever stressed out or something like that, or going through some times. I find that dub can like bring down the tension a little bit. Listening to quite a few dub records, and then, man, you can never take my Yellow Magic Orchestra away from me. Recently, I can go back and listen to Technodelic or BGM 100 times, I swear, and then I'll listen to it again, and it will just set me into a good spot. So, any album that can get you up and just like shaking your booty at this point too, like just in a good smile on your face, and you're up, like that's kind of like what you need to be doing. You got any favorites right now, Rihanna?
No.
No? Also, as a Buddhist, Jeremy says, it really makes me happy to hear talk of mindfulness in life and music. Pretty much sure both of you are aware of Pauline Oliveros.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have thoughts, do you have any thoughts about her work?
I was really influenced by Pauline Oliveros when I lived in Vancouver. For two reasons. One is I found this CD that she recorded with a guy called, I think it was Stuart Dempster, and it was recorded in this underground cavern in Washington State, and it was just beautiful. I mean, I could lay my hands on it like that. But it's her playing a melodeon, an accordion, I think, him playing a trombone. I think there's somebody else doing something. But it's just in this cavern that's got this sort of like 20-second delay. It's just beautiful. I mean, the whole thing about deep listening. I mean, keep coming back to Phil, you know, because one of the things that I think a lot of people don't really know about Phil is that he absolutely loved very, very minimal music. I think one of his favourite albums is Time Machines by Coil, which is about as minimal as you can get, isn't it? It's that kind of stuff for me. Yeah, I love Pauline Oliveros. I never got to see her play live, but there was a lot of that stuff. You know, Vancouver was very rich with that kind of music because, for two reasons, a lot of these people were connected to Simon Fraser University, weren't they? Because they had a very famous professor of music there whose name I can't think of his name now, but he was quite well known. So a lot of them studied at Simon Fraser University. And the second reason is they had a fantastic jazz festival in Vancouver.
Absolutely.
That always brought up sort of left field kind of performance that weren't just jazz, you know. So you saw a lot of that kind of stuff in Vancouver because I think Pauline Oliveros is West Coast anyway, I can't remember, but she might be Arizona. But yeah, so Pauline Oliveros, fantastic, yeah.
Would you utilize any sort of mindfulness tactics or expressions when in your work?
Making music?
No, I mean like being an occupational therapist. Did you ever use that term mindfulness with your patients or students?
No, a lot of this came to prominence really, and came to sort of like popularity after I'd sort of stopped doing clinical work because I went on to do other things. But if I think about the principles that underpin it, I think not just in my work as a therapist, but in my work in life. I mean, I think this has always been important to me.
For sure. And there's nothing like a friend that recommends you a good book.
Sorry?
And there's nothing like a friend that recommends you a good book and a book that opens a door or something that helps you in your mind to actually take the next step. I find lately, I mean, there's going to be times when you're going to get down and you got to realize, okay, it might be a couple days before I feel better. I mean, I know I've just been going through a very stressful event went recently. I won't talk about what, but it just is so difficult to, not be aware that when you're not being mindful of yourself, you can fall down hard, And to pick yourself up is sometimes half the challenge. So for me, mental therapy and taking a break for yourself and getting out in the sunshine or some sort of method that you can use to get out of the negative headspace is a crucial step. So books, recommendations, Paulina, whoever gets you thinking is a wonderful step to take.
The other thing that I was going to say that I think is really, really important is to keep in touch with people. So even though, I mean, I think I've caught with more people over the last couple of weeks than I would normally do, and that's through the internet. So things like this, for me, it's just like a tonic for the soul, you know.
Absolutely.
It's really important because people matter. We matter to each other. And, you know, it's important to connect and keep talking and to be there for each other through good or bad times. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I watched a
it's
live.
about staying together at the moment, isn't it? Staying together.
I watched a live stream last night from Vancouver. Our friends up there, Isaac and Evelyn, did the DJ set from their apartment where they'd normally do it from a club. And it's interesting to see people taking this opportunity to go Facebook Live and do what they would regularly do and offer it to people for inviting them into their home and having this chance to communicate. Yeah. It's no kidding that the communication that we share during this time will be the most vital thing.
And I think relationships will get even stronger through this if we just pull together.
I think so. I think like afterwards we'll be separated for so long, and when we finally see our friends and family again, we'll be ready to hug and hold them for longer than people can tolerate.
Yeah.
Let's hope.
So yeah, there's always light.
Question from Ira. Akira. Hi Ira, how you doing over there? Is it a string instrument from the Omni-Man opening?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Is it the strum?
Yeah.
That is the actual instrument you're holding. That was it.
There you go. That's it. I mean, it's it.
Minimum Riffage. Hello, Minimum Riffage says, I don't have a question. I just want everyone to be kind to each other. Check on your neighbors, call your parents, grandparents, family, and be patient. I agree. That's a good philosophy. Stubborn.
Being patient is really hard right now because every day we're looking for good news.
I know.
And you see glimpses of good news. You see glimpses of good news and bad news. Believe it or not, you'll see trends happening and things like that. It's just try to stay positive. I have times in the day when I'm feeling like shit, but you know, just try, just try. I mean, do something. I've been doing a lot of music. Keep busy, exercise, eat well.
Mark, I always like that thing where we get into a tone. It's like if you didn't feel like, well, what do I do to make music? Well, sometimes just making an actual tone can actually be a nice thing to do, because sometimes people resonate to certain frequencies, and it's like that Eno thing where you just put on the tone and basically resonate, and you can start to feel yourself getting less tension. So sometimes it's so soothing to just make a tone of something.
I've been several times when we've been talking tonight, I've been thinking about ear sound and how important that sound is for me without even knowing about it. And there's a small section in the Skinny Puppy track download, and it goes really quiet, and then there's this kind of oscillating synthesizer tone, and it's just beautiful. It's just gorgeous, and I think that's the only sound. And I can remember every time I hear that, it just makes me feel so good. You know what I mean? And I think I heard the story about, I think that might be Ryan Moore that did it.
Martine.
Or Fu.
Martine.
Was it Martine?
Yeah, Martine.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like the Pro One synth has a resonating filter. Beautiful resonating filter basically means if you turn the resonance all the way up, the synthesizer will make a sound without you pressing a key. And if you change the frequency of that resonance, basically it will sing. And the end of Download, the song, is that sound being played by Martin de Cleer. Actually, a lot of people
Yeah.
don't probably realize that Martin de Cleer is the performer of that part on the album. And so yeah,
Tell you,
it's pretty spiritually
uh,
magical, and that is a resonating filter. It's beautifully spiritual.
I was talking. He says typing to Edward Caspell the other day as well, and we'll talk every so often, and then we'll sort of like share like tons of messages and then not talk for a while. But it's that kind of thing, stay in touch with the people who you really unconditionally, you've got that unconditional connection with. And not just that, it's that bit, it's just staying in touch with people. It's so important. I was reminded about Edward there, thinking about Martine and all those guys. I mean, one of the funniest memories I have of working in Subconscious was when we recorded the Teargarden album. Is it The Angel Blind, Crippled Soul Divine?
Yep.
Is it right? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've never seen so many people at one time jamming together. Do you remember?
There was people in every room.
12 people.
Yeah.
12 people.
It was.
I mean, I think Chris Peterson was there as well, and I think even Tom Anselmi was there.
Tom Anselmi was there. Chris Peterson was there. You were there. Who else? It was like just anybody that you could anybody you could think of that we knew that played something was playing something during that album.
You know all these people going around and be like saying, Edward will walk up to you and say, "Oh, I really like what you're doing."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now, there's no one better than when you work with Edward and he likes something, he just gushes so beautifully that he'll make you feel like you've just hit his G spot. He'll be like, "Oh, God, that's the greatest sound I've ever heard. We must capture it now." And I'll be like, "Yes, yeah, it's just, that's what you need, man." I'm so happy those guys made it safely through Europe. So I was just talking to Edward and saying, "Man, you guys just finished a European tour, and they literally played Milan."
I know.
It's like 2 weeks before this all went down, and it's just like a miracle that they kind of got in there and out, and I said got out safely, but kind of a blessing that he's also safely at home now, back in London as well.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Stubborn Puppet says, "Yes, do that Stanley Payne tour, please. I had tickets to the show in Chicago that got canceled a few hours before the show." So sad about that, man. We showed up and our stage setup was bigger than the actual stage that could. I remember that I was carrying a monitor system for that tour that required a certain level of power. It had to have 220. And the club couldn't supply it, and actually they were going to say that if we played, my monitor system would have been louder than the front of the house. So that was it was kind of an overall sad dilemma for us, but
do you remember how many times we blew the power on that tour?
Oh, everywhere. It's just like we were like a city of electronics on the stage, and it was
it wasn't DC, because it was in Virginia, wasn't it? Venue was in Virginia.
like North Carolina, I think.
Like somewhere. Of those. I remember there was this guy, the power blew, and I remember he was so scared when he worked for the club, but he was like saying, "Hold me, but hold me onto my belt. Don't hold my body."
I remember
and
that.
It was like a chain of people like holding him, including me, and he was like going up saying, "Oh God, here we go."
Yeah, I remember that. It was like he saved the night, though. He actually managed to get the power back on. But yeah, people don't realize, in the days, I don't know how we got away with touring with that much equipment back then. I mean, we did it in Europe and we did it in America. And now when I look at all the equipment that we took on that tour, I have no clue how we did that, actually. It was an insane amount of the stuff. So this was a ship we played. If you look on the Patreon series for the download, Eyes of Stanley Payne, you'll see what a crazy load-in that was for that ship that day. Probably the weirdest load-in I've ever seen, because it was all by net. Your gear was lifted up, netted in, and then netted into the belly of the ship.
And you just remember these huge flight cases in this fishing net just going through this ship like really slowly. And the crane operator, who was also a sound guy
Oh, right.
called Blood, still on the ship, was just an expert in getting this thing through there. He's still talking about that show now.
Wow. Well, I mean, it definitely worked out for us. It's funny how in those days when we'd show up and we had a challenge, we typically could make it work. I think that that Chicago show was one of the only times we ever really had to cancel because we couldn't make it work. We probably could have made it work now that we think about it.
Yeah,
But
I think that was the only show we cancelled.
yeah.
The only show.
Mark, I love your packaging that you do on all of your products that you make, usually by hand. And Simon Paul asks, we'd love to see the process of Mark's visuals and packaging for some of his albums. If he does a Patreon, they're super interesting and tactile. I'd love to see, love the work he sent me. Awesome chat, guys. And I gather he's saying he'd love to see how you go about making a lot of the things you do.
Is that Simon Paul who's saying that to me?
Yes, yeah.
God, I mean, this is a real compliment.
Yeah,
He's
coming from
fantastic-
Simon. Hey, Simon.
It's just like, wow. I mean, I don't know what to say, Simon. Yeah, I mean, it's everything I do really has a purpose, if you know what I mean. I don't really, sad really, I don't really paint anymore for the sake of painting. If I paint or make art, it's usually for something. So I'd really have to get back into the zone where I could do that. But if you, I mean, tell you what, this is about people connecting, isn't it? Because if you've got an idea about how I can make this real, then please tell me, because I just don't have an idea myself. I mean, I know you do because you publish books and things like that, but I would need some help. So if you want to do it together with me, Simon, there's a project there.
Hey, there you go. Project number 2, birthed right out of this very session here. That sounds like something that's good. You two together. Mark, you're just a natural. The things you do, he doesn't think about it, ladies and gentlemen. He just does. Very tactile and very, very, always loved going over to your place where it'd be like you'd have like pieces of art all in midway going on. It's just super inspiring.
So nothing much has changed really.
But you aren't painting anymore, or you are?
Not really.
Oh, man.
I mean, today I was writing poetry for lyrics, but it's like I say, if I've got a project, then the project usually sort of like, if it needs me to do some art, then I'll do some art. But I mean, it makes me feel like I'm not very busy, but I sort of am all of the time, if you know what I mean. So the music is quite engrossing.
I have a beautiful painting of yours downstairs in my studio. That's just a gray setting, like a gray sort of. I think you know which one you gave it to me.
It's like a reflection.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. And I painted that in Redcar when I lived at my mum's house. So that's 40 years old at least. So yeah.
Alex Graham, you don't want to do this to us. Here's a fun one: Beatles versus Stones. I can't wait to hear what Mark says. It's probably the same as what I say.
Beatles.
How about neither?
Beatles.
No, actually, Revolution number 9, if listened to in the right environment, is probably one of the most brilliant cut-ups ever made. I got to hand it to John and Yoko for creating that.
I tell you, I do love the Beatles. I also love the early Rolling Stones as well. I love them. I love that sort of stuff a lot. Especially the kind of bit where they got a bit out of it, shall we say, with Brian Jones, and I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love the beginning of both bands a lot. Like for sure, there's nothing you can. I wouldn't pick one over the other. I probably would pick Beatles over Stones for sure, actually.
I'm really into George Harrison at the moment, actually, early George Harrison.
Yeah.
And they were all experimenting. I mean, he did a very strange album called Electronic Sounds when the Beatles were still going, which I think was the first release on. Actually, they called it Zapple, the experimental side of Apple. And if you listen to that now, it's not. it's a bit like Metal Machine music. You got to be in the right mood for it, you know.
Man, that's a good suggestion. I'm going to check that out. I have not pondered back in that direction. So you say, is there more records on that side of the Apple label that are in that guys?
Really on Apple. I mean, Edward would be a really good guy to talk to about
Oh
it.
man.
But it's the John and Yoko stuff as well, which is very hit and miss. But there was I picked up a fantastic album by Yoko, which it totally missed me, passed me by. But at the same time that they released the Plastic Ono band, she also released an album I think it was called Plastic Ono as well. And it's just incredible. It's got the same band on that played on the Plastic Ono band album with John Lennon. So it's like Ringo Starr, I think he's a fantastic drummer. Klaus Wilman, John Lennon and somebody else, Billy Preston was it? I can't remember. And just with Yoko, just completely screaming over the top of it. And I saw an interview with Ringo, and he was like saying, Yoko, you should have just calmed down a bit and had a cup of tea. It's just incredible.
I was lucky enough to see a gig that I waited my whole life to see on June 26, 2011. I can still tell you the date. Yellow Magic Orchestra played the Hollywood Bowl, if you can believe it. And I had a table right up near the front, and Yoko was there. And they invited Yoko up stage, and she just wailed. She was like, and it was like, it was over. It was out of the park. It was out of bounds. It was completely out of bounds.
I mean, I don't know if you can remember this. When I was a kid, 7, 8 years old, we had a TV program in the UK called Top of the Pops. It was the only main music program. And of course, John Lennon was releasing a bunch of singles, and they all charted. And some of them were very, were a bit strange. But he would have Yoko with him. And she'd be doing strange things on stage, like she'd be holding like banners up saying, give peace a chance. And at one point she was like knitting. And she was like knitting with like wool that was like that thick, And then on another one she was in a bag, like completely covered in a bag.
So awesome.
And British public, this was just outrageous. She was a figure of scorn, really. And I think she was a genius, absolute genius.
I'd like to say hello to Sebastian, Chris Bellevue, Alex, Tony, Jason, Frederick Lowen, and everybody for commenting. My unit here is dying in a second. The battery power is going to go out on my phone. We have exhausted a full battery in chat. Mark Spybey, I just want to thank you so much for tuning in today with us here. And everybody on the Patreon crew, thank you so much for your support and helping us to be able to do something like this. Mark, let's return back and do another chat maybe next weekend and continue this, because I don't think we've finished half of what our discussion will be. So can we return next Sunday?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Okay. So everybody, join us again next Sunday, 2 p.m. We'll try and do the same thing. Mark, huge love to you, brother.
To you, yeah. And to Rihanna and the cats.
All the best to you guys out there. Let's give each other all a big, huge virtual hug right now.
Big hugs, Mark.
Big hug, all right, guys?
Take care.
We love you all. And we'll see you guys soon, all right?
Yeah. Okay.
Love.